fun. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about any club business that you want to ask me about? I'm not seeing anything. Oh, someone is asking me.
Hello.
Did I just answer your question, Danny, about what's the update on schools?
I'm connected.
And Deborah's on, so that is perfect timing. I see no other questions for me, so that will conclude the business portion of this meeting. Deborah, whenever you're ready, I will turn it back over to you.
Crazy.
Oh, you can
Thank
hear
you.
me. See? It's all fixed.
Yeah, I don't know what I was doing wrong, but haven't had that problem before. But
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb. You're the best. Hi, everyone.
Okay, over to you, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Ashley. Thank you. So, okay, guys, before we start the program, we're going to take a deep breath and try to get here. And we always kind of review our upcoming programs, which next month is Manny Wrangle on the Stewart Pocket area. And I'm actually going up there tomorrow and going to see Manny and John Sasso, and Bill's going to be there. I have a hurt shoulder right now, though. I'm not probably climbing, but I'm going to check it out. So that's exciting. I have an opening right now in May. I have some things that are, maybe going to happen. I'm just trying. Of course, if any of you have any ideas, please let me know. And then in June, I'm sorry. I actually had someone that had to back out. That's what I'd been telling you about, Damon Williams. We're going to move him to the fall. And he's going to present there. So, so who I got in June is a woman named Lindsay Ham. She's known as the Haminator. And she was referred to me. She's just because of, she's an awesome climber, of course, but for what she's doing for the climbing community. And I'll have more on that. I'm still very much working on details. So just know that there's good things coming, lots of good things coming. And then just a reminder, we are not going to have a program in July. We always take July off. It's too hot. We need to get out of town and all that kind of stuff. So we are on schedule to go play in another fun place. So anyways, tonight we are super stoked to have Ashley Salpe here from the Sharp End podcast. And Ashley doesn't know that, but hopefully all of you know that this is a little different tonight because Ashley is going to share some things about the podcast and all that. But I also sent a message to all of you saying this is interactive tonight. We want to know your questions, or if you have something to share about a near disaster. If you could make it brief, though, maybe we can learn something from that. And so I gave you all homework to go listen to a podcast or two if you are not already a much devoted fan, as I am. And so anyways, the first 4 people to share are going to get a very cool thing that Ashley brought to us. And it's this. If you can see this, this is an awesome sticker. We can think of lots of good places to stick these things. And don't worry, I won't keep all of them. I will get it to you eventually. We'll see each other sometime here. So that's going to be fun. So anyways, okay. So the first of every month, more than 40,000 devoted fans, including me, they tune in and listen to the latest Sharp End podcast, which brings to life stories from adventurers like you and me, Deborah, Bill, we all out there adventuring. It's just regular people. And so she interviews whether they're climbers, skiers, rescuers, mountaineers, all involved in life-threatening incidents, and they share their lessons, and helping all of us become safer in the outdoors. So without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Ashley, because I'm having one of those nights anyway, and she's going to fill you in on everything cool. But at some point here, we want to hear back from you. Now, Ashley, just one thing, and you're going to have to unmute yourself, friend. Yes.
Okay.
So would you this is Ashley, everyone, our cute friend here.
Hi.
Ashley, shall we wait at the end of your little information you're sharing with us to ask you questions, or do you want people to butt in and ask whenever?
Yeah, please. Anytime you have a question, just stop me and I'm happy to answer. And then at the end, we can ask more questions too, but definitely anytime you want.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to you for right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Ashley Sapi. Sape, it's French. I am really super honored and humbled to be here in front of all of you. I'm sweating. My my
Me
palms, my palms are sweaty. Yeah, it really is a pleasure. So thanks so much for having me. I thought I would just talk a little bit about how I started my podcast, what it is, what I'm trying to do, my goals. And then we can feel free to interrupt me at any time. So I'm in Arizona right now.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I'm in Flagstaff in the Courtyard Hotel, and I've been living here for 5 weeks. And I flew out here, deployed with FEMA and adventure medics to give vaccines to the public at Fort Tuthill. So I work about 12 to 14-hour days, Monday through Saturday, every day. Sunday's my only day off. And I vaccinate anywhere from 30 to 50 people a day. And at our site, we probably run maybe 600 or more people through our site a day. So
wow,
that's what I'm doing here in Arizona.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I started the Sharpen in November of 2015. So this is the longest relationship I've ever been in. But for real, I once dated a guy for 3 years. I went to college for 4 years, but this is really the longest relationship I've ever been in, 6 years. And I put out an episode every first of the month, and I've never missed a deadline. I call it a deadline, but I've never missed the first drop. And so it's really important to me to have consistency with my episodes. It makes it hard because I'm a Rolling Stone. I live in a different place every 3 months. And it's pretty difficult to schedule interviews, record interviews, edit interviews, and then post interviews along with marketing and along with everything else that the podcast takes when I'm moving around so much. So I don't have a studio this is my studio today. So if you do listen to my podcast, you may have noticed some audio that isn't the best. Say that because I don't have a studio, right? I've interviewed people in the McDonald's parking lot by pirating Wi-Fi many times. So I came up with this idea in November of 2015 because I was a really big climber in my 20s. I'm 33 years old, so I climbed all through my 20s obsessively. And I lived in a van, and I would go from climbing area to climbing area to climbing area in my van. And I read those books that the American Alpine Club puts out religiously. The books called Accidents in North American Climbing. I read those books religiously because I just really love to learn from other people's mistakes. but you can't read when you're driving and you can't read when you're in the passenger seat. Well, I can't because I get car sick. So I was thinking I looked over to my partner at the time and I said, man, these really should be podcasts. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, that was kind of it. And then the next day I run up to Josh and I say, Josh, I'm going to make this a podcast. And he looked at me and he's like, okay, this is the most supportive partner I've ever had in my entire life. He's every idea I've come up with. He's like, great, Ash, go ahead, dude. That sounds good. You go for it, sister. And he looked at me and he said, do you even listen to podcasts? And I said, no, actually I don't. But I'm going to make this a podcast. So I did. I came up with the idea and I sat there and I just jotted all my ideas down and how I was going to make it happen. Started listening to some podcasts to get an idea of what the heck a podcast is and does and how it works. And then one day, maybe a week later, I came home from work. I think I was working a night shift I was living in Salt Lake City at the time. And I think I worked a night shift at Snowbird as a hostess, the worst job I've ever had. It was terrible. And I think I get off at maybe midnight, come home tired, grumpy from all the terrible customers from that night. And I walk in and there's a present on the stairs leading up to the bedroom. And Josh is an absolutely terrible gift wrapper. The worst, okay, maybe a 2-year-old can wrap a present better than Josh can. I don't know what his issue was, but he could just not wrap presents. I love wrapping gifts. So I make them all cute and they're all color coordinated. Anyway, so there was this he did a good job. It was taped. The corners were done up nicely and it was impressive. I was impressed. So I sat there and I'm holding this box on my lap and it's midnight. I'm tired. And I opened the box, and in that box, does anybody have any guesses what was in that box? Come on, let's hear some.
Microphone.
Yes, a microphone. Josh bought me my first microphone, which was really cool. I definitely cried. It was just a really sweet, thoughtful gift. I had this idea and this man, let's see, is this a note? Oh yeah. This man, believed in me and bought me my first microphone, and then off I went to the races. So my first year, I would say, if you haven't listened to my podcast, please don't go back that far. I'm not super proud of a lot of those episodes. They're good stories, but I really didn't know what I was doing. The learning curve was steep, learning how to edit, learning what kind of software to use to edit, learning what headphones to use, theme music. It was all just a major learning curve. So that's how I got started. Again, I've never really recorded in the same place twice. I did some recording in Salt Lake. Josh and I would go on climbing road trips, and I would record on the side of, outside of McDonald's. I'd record in hotels and hostels, at friends' homes, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Alaska. I recorded a lot in my bus when I lived up in Alaska, in Haines, Alaska, next to my wood stove. So some of those episodes, when I was living in my bus, you'll hear some wood crackling in the background, which I've gotten mixed reviews. Some people really love the fire crackling and some people hate it. And so, and everyone will tell me what they think. So anyway, it's kind of fun to just sort of mix it up and record in different places. So yeah, if you're wondering why my audio quality is so poor, it's because I don't have a recording studio and I probably never will. Yeah, let's see what else. When I do record, I actually record with lots of pillows. I use pillows and I put pillows behind my microphone and behind my computer, and I sort of make this fortress. So it muffles the sound so I don't echo. So that's one thing that I've learned in my travels, to at least sound like I do have a studio, which Does it work? I don't know. Let's see. I have some notes, so bear with me. I did record an episode here in Flagstaff, Arizona 3 weeks ago, and in this hotel room. And it was a pain in the butt because it turns out that I had a crying baby on the one side of me and then barking dogs on the other side of me at the same time for the exact hour that I was recording, but not before or after, just when I was recording. So, what's funny about editing is you can really only edit so much out, because if I'm talking at the same time that the baby's crying and the dog's barking, I can't edit those specific sounds out because it's on my track. So then you just hear barking dogs and crying babies. So I'm sorry about that. Again, I produce an episode every first of the month. People want me to produce more episodes more frequently, and I would love to, but I also have a full-time job. So I really am making this podcast for my guests and for my listeners with my spare time. And as all of you know, time really is the most valuable thing we all have. So I really can't make any more episodes unless I quit my full-time job and I make this a full-time job. But right now I'm just not getting enough income with the show to make it work. I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. So, but maybe one day. So I only do one a month, and I hope that still is okay with everybody. People get really excited about the first of the month and they hit refresh over and over and over and until the episode goes live, which is always really flattering. And any questions so far?
You're doing great. We love it.
Okay, great.
Actually, I do have one.
Yeah.
So do the people find you, or do you sometimes hear about like this incredible thing that happened and you reach out to the guest? How do they come to you?
Both. So at first, the first year and a half, I would hunt people down to get stories. And so that's a great question. So so I could ask 5 people if they would want to be on the sharp end, and 4 of the 5 would say no. In the beginning, that's how it was. And it's really interesting because now it's not like that. Now I have more submissions than I can produce shows, which is really cool. And I really do think that I've really helped shape the way that we're looking at accidents by way of the podcast. So instead of people feeling so embarrassed or guilty or full of shame, now people are more willing to share their story with the world. So, but at first it wasn't like that. Nobody wanted to be on the show. And so I really am trying to shift the way that the culture is with accidents in the mountains, which means a lot to me to be able to help with that process.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So some people will say, some people will write in and say, hey, the Sharp End podcast, I love what you are all doing, and everybody at the Sharp End is doing good work, and plural. I'm one person, and I want the world to know that the Sharp End is me. So I am literally doing all the work, I'm 33 years old. I'm from Alaska. I was born in Anchorage. I'm a city girl. That's a joke. Okay. Yeah. So Anchorage is, a small city, but yeah, I'm from Anchorage. So I like snow machining, split boarding. I'm into paragliding. I like building snowmen. I like berry picking, swimming in the ocean. I like to travel to places I can't pronounce the names of. I am literally fascinated by the curious and sometimes tragic intersection between risk, chance, and human resilience in the wilderness setting. So that's what drove me to start the show. I went to military school in high school, not because I was a bad kid, but because I wanted to graduate early and get on with my life. I received a 4-year scholarship to Sheldon Jackson College, which is a tiny little college on Baranof Island in Sitka, Alaska, in Southeast Alaska. I'm actually the last graduating class from Sheldon Jackson College. It went bankrupt my senior year, and they had to move me to Juneau to finish my degree. So that's where I finished. So that's a little bit about me. I after I graduated, I served a year doing AmeriCorps, and then I moved to Colorado to work for the Colorado Outward Bound School. And I worked for Outward Bound for 9 years. When I first started with the school, my dream goal since college, since high school, was to be a mountaineering instructor for Outward Bound in Alaska. But the year that I'm hearing of echo. Do you guys hear that? Okay, so I think it's off now.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, the year that I graduated college, all through high school, I really wanted to work for Outward Bound in Alaska, instructing mountaineering courses. But the year that I graduated college, it was a year too early to work for Outward Bound. So I had to do AmeriCorps. So I did that. And then the year I started with Outward Bound was the year they actually shut down the entire Outward Bound Alaska. So essentially my whole life dream was shattered, but I was like, no, okay, I'm going to work for Outward Bound. I'm going to work for Colorado Outward Bound School for 4 years. And then I'm going to write a proposal to reopen Alaska, which is what I did. So I resurrected Outward Bound Alaska, and I ran that school for 5 years, which was my dream. And they actually shut me down 2 Octobers ago because of budget cuts and such. So then I moved on to Knowles. Then I moved on to working for the Department of Health and Social Services Emergency Operations Center in Alaska, allocating all the PPE testing supplies throughout the entire state. Now I'm here in Arizona giving your people the shot. So it's a little bit about me. But again, the sharp end is not plural. The sharp end is singular. So you know the person who does everything, which is pretty cool. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding. Again, I started the podcast to minimize future outdoor incidents and really to give people a voice, to give people like you, Bill, Brian, Eric, Scott, Andrea, Daniel, like to give all of you people a platform to share your story with the world, to give you a voice. For a lot of these people who are guests on my show, it's powerful stuff. These people have experienced some serious trauma in their life. Okay. And I am not a therapist. I am an outdoor educator. So a lot of this stuff is too heavy for me. And I just want to give these people a safe place where they can walk me through their accident from the very beginning to the very end in detail, share their story, and heal from that, and verbally process that time that they went through, and that experience that they had, which is really intense. A lot of my guests will just be crying on the phone with me. And I sometimes will be crying with them because it's heavy. So that's why I do it, is to give these people a space to share with no shame, no judgment, just to get it out and hopefully minimize future outdoor accidents via their story. Any questions on why I'm doing it?
Not why, but I'm curious how much you talk to your guests in advance, right? Like obviously you're communicating by email, but is there like a pre-interview, or is it all kind of like as it happens?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking that. Uh, I so they will oftentimes write in and say, "Hey, Ashley, I have a story," and then they'll usually in that first intro email send me a couple paragraphs, sometimes an essay, sometimes a full story typed out. And they'll send that in and I'll read that. And that's when I'm usually like, okay, well, let's see, is this a good, could this be a good episode for the show? And sometimes they are perfect. And I say, great, well, when can you interview? And sometimes they're not a fit. And so it's really hard for me to say you're not a fit for my show. I think that's been one of my hardest things to say. So oftentimes I'll write them back and I'll say, what were the lessons learned? Because sometimes they're just accidents that are just accidents and there aren't really any lessons to gift the listener. So then I can sort of, they could tell me that they're not a good fit for the show instead of me having to say that. So to the answer your question, I do know some of their story. Sometimes people write me the full account in great detail. Some people just write me a synopsis, and as long as they can give me 5 or so learnings, then I might go with it. And if I go with it, I won't do a pre-interview. It'll just be, okay, here's our date and our time that we're going to interview. These are the 5 things that you need for the interview, like a microphone, headphones, a quiet space, send the crying kids out to walk the barking dog, put some pillows around your microphone. So it's like sort of a little bit of setup, but it's not, but there's no pre-interview because I don't want to be bored, to be honest. And I think if I know the whole thing, I think I'll be less engaged.
I love, like, when I'm listening to it, I think that comes through because I always feel like you're reacting in real time. I mean, obviously it's edited, so it's not really happening live, but it's that real time response to what you're hearing. That's why I was curious if you talked to them at all ahead of time. So it really is that fresh.
It is. Yeah, it is that fresh. And that's sometimes has bit me in the butt. Sometimes I feel like I should be more prepared, but I also don't have the time to do 2 interviews at once, so it's kind of like all I can squeeze in anyway. But I also do offer them the space to, hey, feel free to call me if you have any questions, and then when we get on the line together, we don't do video, we just do audio. But when we get on the line and we share that room together, before I hit the record button, I sit and talk with them for about 10 minutes because their voice is quivering. They're moving all kinds of stuff around and making all kinds of noise. And it's like, look, homie, I can't edit that out. So just sit still, and then they're like this. And I'm like, okay, can you relax a little bit? Can you breathe a little, So I'm spending 10 minutes before I record getting them to function regularly,
So I'm curious, Ashley, if this is, it seems like it's a wonderful passion project. Is this something that you want to, like you said, maybe you want to turn it into like a more of a career? Do you have plans to do that? Or how might you, I'm not even sure if I'm asking a question exactly, but where do you want it to go, I guess?
And went deep.
Thanks for asking. Yeah. Thanks for asking that, Anne. And I wish I had a person to Josh, my ex-partner. He's still my best friend. He's my biggest fan next to my mom. My mom is also my biggest fan, but Josh is really supportive and Josh asks me these questions but I don't know. I was talking to him yesterday and I think I'm in a negative feedback loop right now with my podcast, because to get it to the next level, I need to give it more time, but I don't have the time to give it. To get it to the next level, I need to put more money into the marketing, but I don't have the money to put into the marketing. You know what I mean? So I'm stuck, but I do want it to be better and I want it to grow. but I don't have the money or the time to make those things happen. So I'm not really sure. I think it would be really awesome to be a full-time podcaster and maybe do 2 episodes a month or maybe once a week. But to do that, I think I have to quit my job. And really, right now I've got 1 foot in, which I don't think is the way to make this really successful. It's certainly a way to continue to do it as I'm doing it, but I won't grow it, and it won't be exactly how I want it to be by this just being a passion project. So I think to get to the next level, I think I have to go all in and quit my job and just do what I'm doing, but it's scary.
Yeah, and I guess sort of I totally get that. And certainly what you're saying about all of these conversations around, accidents and near misses outdoors, there seems to be a big shift. And like you said, if, your podcast is a big part of that, then, kind of capitalizing on that seems like, I'd support it if I could.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, support. It's an interesting topic with podcasts. People want to support, but they don't. It's so funny. You get so many likes on Instagram, but if every like was $1, I wouldn't have to hustle. You know what I mean? So support and a like on an Instagram does help. Writing a review on iTunes does help, but really to grow, you need time and money, which not everybody is willing to give. So that's kind of where I'm stuck. And I'm terrible at advocating for myself. Terrible. And I'm terrible at business.
Ashley,
Yeah.
I'm going to advocate for you right now because I know that you have a new website at the turn of the year and you've been restructuring things, but you also have developed a way for people to support you. And it is called the Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon. So I would love it if you would please share with us this new way that people can in fact support you.
Thanks. Patreon is one way. It's a platform where people can go and donate. There's certain tiers that the platform is based on. So there's, my smallest tier was a $5 tier. And then I got some feedback last month that this person, Steven, wanted to donate. And he said, you need to have a $1 level. So I really feedback is really important to me because I'm from the Outward Bound culture, and Outward Bound is all about feedback, so I'm all about feedback, and I want to integrate people's feedback because I want my podcast to be for the people, so I took his feedback and I freaking made a $1 level that I named the Steven level. So yeah, Steven, but the thing about $1 levels is most of that goes to the Patreon platform, so it's whatever, but he doesn't know that, and now he's happy. So the Stephen gods are appeased. But anyway, yeah, Patreon is a way where you can donate a flat fee, or you can donate. You can subscribe for a monthly donation. So that just gets taken out of your bank account, like $5 a month or $25 a month, or whatever you want to give to the show to help propel the show. Yeah, Patreon. You could patreon.com/the sharp end.
And put it in the chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at business. I that's not really what I intended when I started the show. I started the show to give people a space to share their story, and it's turned into what it needs to be, a business to be successful, it turns out. So now I'm having to learn all this other stuff when I'm on my free time. And I'm also having to advocate for myself, and I'm absolutely terrible at both of those things. So there's a lot of growth for me that needs to happen for the show to get to propel.
You've also obviously had a lot of learning in terms of the technical part. You were saying you didn't know anything about podcasts before you started. So you were given a microphone But how did you learn what software and about headphones and about pillows? And did you?
Yeah, well, so I used that microphone for about a year, and it was so heavy. It was a snowball, so it's a circle with three little legs, that can come off so you can collapse it and travel with it. And I would travel with it because that's what I was just moving around all the time. But it caused so many problems at TSA because they would think it was a bomb. So I had to get a new microphone. So I got the Audio Technica microphone, which is really nice because it just collapses pretty small, does not look like a bomb, and can carry it on pretty easily. And the headphones and the microphone were actually suggestions from my friend Evan Phillips. And Evan Phillips is the host of the Fern Line podcast. And that's my favorite podcast. He's a really incredible storyteller. I see some thumbs up. You guys know Evan. He's also from Alaska. He's a badass alpine climber, old time ice climber. I think Evan's maybe in his 40s. He's got a daughter. He used to be in the band the Whipsaws. So he's just a really stellar dude. And he's been a really good mentor of mine to help me. What's his site called? The Fern Line. Fern as in fern, the fern of a glacier. So he's just been a really great mentor of mine. Whenever I have a question, Evan's just on the other end of the text, like, hey, this is what you got to do, Ash. And he actually built my website for me, which we launched on January 1st. So I scraped up some money and was like, I'm going to make it rain for you, Evan. Can you just build me a website? Because that's not for me. And he built a beautiful website. I asked for simple and user-friendly, as simple as possible, as user-friendly as possible. So that's what I got. And I'm really happy with it. He also just wrote my new theme music. So I had the same theme music for 6 years, which was a little bouncy and was good, but it wasn't the tone that I was going for. That was just what I snatched because I had to produce an episode on this date to launch my show. So I same thing with my logo and the name of my podcast, The Sharp End. All that kind of came together within 2-3 weeks after I had this idea. So, we bought the licensing of that original theme music, but it wasn't, I didn't marinate on it long enough. I just went with it. There was a couple choices or maybe a handful of choices, and that's what I picked, which was fine at the time, but it wasn't doing it for me. I wanted something a little bit more somber, some melody, some somberness, but I wanted some hope at the end. And that's what Evan wrote me. So he wrote my newest theme music for me, which some people do not like, and they'll tell me. And some people are really pleased with the new music. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Hey, Ashley, this is Brian. Thanks for coming on. This is amazing. I'm just curious if you could talk a little more about the emotional side of it, because you mentioned you were crying earlier, maybe.
I just did an episode. I just did an interview 2 months ago. That was supposed to be the March episode, but it was the best interview I'd gotten in 63 interviews. The best, hands down. This guy was articulate, concise. The story was incredible. There were tons of learnings from the accident, and I edited it, and it was going to be the March 1st episode. Then I get an email from his partner, and she says, please do not air this show. I know that he talked to you. I know that you got the interview with this guy. I am suicidal, and everybody in my town, we have a small community, and everybody knows what happened, and everyone thinks that I dropped him, and I didn't. And so she was pleading and begging me to not air the show. And he wrote me and said, I heard she reached out to you. We've given her resources to work through her trauma, and she's resistant and angry. And then she wrote me back and said, I heard he wrote you. So I got put in the middle of this really toxic climbing relationship. And it was really hard for me to not air the show because because it's the best show I've ever had. I can't tell you guys how many learnings came from it. Essentially, they were climbing and he was on lead and she was belaying him and he fell, ripped a piece out. Essentially, the rope slipped through her hands. She held on the whole time. She has 3rd-degree rope burns on her hands to prove it, that she held onto that rope as tightly as she could. She got sucked up to the first bolt and he hit the deck and he got super, super messed up. Like, he is very lucky to be alive. And she blames herself, this girl. She blames herself. Other people in the smaller community are blaming her. He doesn't blame her. He said, girl, you have rope burns on your hands. It's clear that you held on as tight as you could, but the problem is the weight differential between the two of them. I can go into that more, but I'm not going to. But these are the things that I deal with, whether or not to air the show. I tried to see if she would be on the show to tell her side of the story, but she said no way. And so it's a delicate balance dealing with these humans' lives. It's heavy. So I had to get another interview for the March episode. I still have that, and I have that episode, and I'm just waiting maybe for a year to go by to potentially air it. If once I gave her a whole bunch of resources, including Laura McGladgery's The Responder Alliance and the American Alpine Club's Grief Fund, along with some other resources for her to sort of help that trauma. And has not taken any of those resources, which I just am so heartbroken for. But I think eventually I'm hoping she'll come around, and then potentially I can air that episode in about a year after I give her some time. I wouldn't do, when I'm picking out what interviews to air, I wouldn't do an avalanche episode in July, right? I try and stay with seasons, so it just makes sense. I am pretty adverse to interviewing famous people. I've interviewed 2 famous people in 63 episodes. I interviewed Quinn Brett, and that's when the American Alpine Club flew me to the annual benefit dinner in Boston, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And we did a live interview. It was my first live interview. I was sweaty. I was so nervous because she's one of my heroes. She's a badass chick. And so I was just so honored to be on the stage with her. And it was after she had paralyzed herself. And so her life was just so new. And then I've interviewed Hans Flooring. He was the second famous person. And both those interviews were kind of pushed on me from some outside sources. Were like, this is who you should interview because you'll get more listens. And while that's true, I just really want to be relatable to my audience. So my audience are people like me. I was a 5'10" climber and really just like 5'8", 9 pitch 5/8. That's what I really like. But I'm not famous. I'm just a person with an idea, so that's what I want my listeners to know. Accidents can happen to anybody on this call, and we are just normal people trying to get by that like to recreate in the outdoors. And if I feel like if I only interviewed famous people, it wouldn't be as relatable. It wouldn't be as what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it wouldn't be as relatable for us. So I do think, of course, they have accidents, right? They're not invincible unless you're Alex Honnold, but maybe I'll interview Alex Honnold one day about how the heck he hasn't had any accidents this far, but it's important to me that, we're all human. I want us to be all human, and we're all on the same level, when I get interviews, I usually block off about an hour of time because I don't want to waste my guests' time either. And I edit that down to anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes because that's the attention span of most people these days. So it's really hard sometimes to edit out really good storytellers, but I make myself do it. And I do have a couple of episodes that are about an hour, but those stories, they're just so good I can't edit anything out. And people that like short episodes will tell me, Ashley, that episode's too long. You need to make sure your episodes are 30 minutes. And it's like, great, thanks for the feedback. Can't please everybody. Okay. Let's see. I think that's really all I have, you guys. Feel free to please keep asking me questions, or again, jump off the call if you have dinner or something.
You have been more than generous with your time. And yeah, so hey guys, you've got any more questions, please go.
So I've got somebody pick somebody here.
Hey, I'll just jump in. This is Brian again. Top 3 lessons learned. Is there some lessons that just keep on showing up one after another?
Complacency is the biggest one, for sure. Not having the right tools for the job is another that I see. And then ego, not having the right tools for the job. Really, people need GPS devices if they're going to go deep, with specifically, I prefer the InReach because it has 2-way communications. Fun fact, nobody else knows this. This happened today. Are you guys ready? Okay. I'm so excited to share this news. Nobody else knows this. This is really exciting. I've been begging and hunting. Do you know how hard it is to get or marketing contacts? It's freaking hard, especially for big name companies. Well, I have spent 2 years being persistent little weasel fighting for Garmin. Took me 2 years. Finally, I got in touch with the chick. We had a lovely conversation last year. She's like, yeah, this seems like a great partnership. We should look into this, but I think we're a go, which, that was exciting for me last year. And then she ghosted me. And then I kept emailing her, not annoyingly, once a month. I would email her, hi, remember that really awesome conversation we had last year? You told me, you promised, and nothing. It turns out that actually do you guys know that Garmin got held for ransom for last year for some ungodly amount of money? I can't remember how much it was, like in the millions of dollars. They got held for ransom last year. So I think that's why she ghosted me, because they were dealing with their own shit. But long story short, my persistence paid off. They are going to sponsor the show they've gave me 3 months. So they're like, you got 3 months to get your act together, girl. So, I'm really excited about that, but I like the little clap in the corner. Oh, there's so many claps in the corner. That's so cool. Yeah. So I'm thrilled. It's the coolest sponsorship. It's the one that I've really, really, really wanted because it just makes sense for the show. And that's another thing too I didn't touch on is sponsorships. So I'm really picky about who I partner with. Because I don't want to I definitely don't want to be grasping at straws. Mike's Hard Lemonade approached me and said, hey, we want to sponsor you. And I'm like, hey, I don't even drink alcohol and I wouldn't drink Mike's Hard Lemonade. And it doesn't make sense for an outdoor safety podcast. So no, Spot Device approached me to sponsor the show. While I think their device is cool, again, I'm much more into two-way communications for, communicating with your rescuer, with search and rescue, with heli, those types of things. So I've been holding off for Garmin, and I'm so thrilled that they signed on today for 3 months, or like a kind of a trial. We'll see what happens, but yeah. Thanks for celebrating with me. That's super exciting.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Hey, Ashley, without going into too much detail, we had a couple of our club members that were in a pretty significant accident a little over a year ago, and it was in a local area that we climb at and that we actually do a lot of teaching at. It's over in the McDowells near Tom's Thumb. So it's more of an urban crag with a lot of climbs at it. I talked to one of the folks that was involved in that, and one of the issues they had was getting the helicopter in there and finding exactly, even though, and see people with their spots clicked on their inReaches clicked on their backpacks in that little hiking area until I got that feedback. So having that exact GPS coordinates would have been a huge help on that little thing. So I agree with it. My wife does get pissed when I leave mine at home. So yeah, keep preaching that.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for sharing, Scott. Yeah, there's no reason to not carry it. I mean, it's I've never had I've never had an inReach, never had a GPS device except for my phone. I use Gaia on my phone because I'm a dirtbag. I've lived in a snow cave. I've lived on buses in abandoned buildings. Don't ask. I'm pretty dirtbag climber person, so I've refused to pay for an inReach. And my boyfriend this year bought me one for Christmas. So he's like, "You need this because you go far." So I'm thrilled to have one. And I wish he would have held out though, because now I'm sponsored by Garmin, and maybe they would give me one for free.
Get a 5-year subscription out of that deal.
Yeah, I should try. That's a good. But again, advocating for myself, I'm terrible at it. So I'm just happy that they signed on for 3 months. I'm gonna sit there for a minute.
I don't have inReach or whatever, but I did use my Garmin watch to call for and give them my exact coordinates to the helicopter, and they were like right over my head. And like when they got there in McDowell's, like they just flew right up above. Yeah. I was actually involved in an accident. I mean, maybe I should reach out to you sometime and talk about it.
Yeah, if there are lessons learned, please do.
A whole lot. It was fun. I mean, there's more lessons which are more positive now. There's other lessons. I mean, it's been a while.
Ashley, I'm wondering, I know you're contacting these people ahead of time, you're getting their story, but how much do you find you have to coax the learnings out of them? How many people are like, they've got a great story, but they haven't really learned anything from it?
I wouldn't take them. So that's one of the emails that I do correspond. Once they send me their sort of intro paragraph of the synopsis of what happened, hey, do you think, like, they submit that, I always write back, thanks for writing in. Can you give me 3 to 5 lessons learned from this accident to make sure it's a gift that we can give the listeners? Because that's what it's all about, is gifting, is giving them a space to share their story, process what happened, but also it's to give you all a gift to minimize future incidents. So if they don't have lessons that can be shared, then for me, it's not worth doing the episode on.
Right. Do you ever have to coax those lessons out of them? Like, you see what they should have learned, but they don't see it?
Sometimes. And that's a finesse too, because you don't want to be condescending. You certainly don't want to, so when some people aren't wearing their helmets, you're like, why the hell weren't you wearing a helmet? I don't want to be that person. I want them to